Alright, so today I want to show you what I consider to be one of the most essential pieces of equipment that you can have in your reptile room. And I would dare say most people don't have one of these, and they're relatively inexpensive. As a matter of fact, if you don't have one, I would highly recommend going out and buying one today. And that would be this little gadget right here. Take a look at this. This is a battery-powered thermometer that has a high and a low temperature alarm. And let me tell you, these are absolutely essential in your reptile room. I probably have about a dozen of them, and I use them on my snake racks. So for example, actually on my snake rack behind me, I have one, and these actually have a probe that plugs in the side, and then on the end of the wire, at the very end of the wire, it has a little shiny metal piece right here, and that's where it monitors the temperature. And these are actually magnetic. These are pretty cool. So you can actually snap it right to your rack, and then put this all the way around the back, right on top of your heat strip, and then you can actually dial in your set temperatures as far as what you want the high and low alarms to be, which is pretty awesome. So if anything goes wrong with your rack, it'll definitely let you know, and it'll alarm. And for me in my reptile room here, I have like one probe on my hatchling rack, one probe on my grow out rack, and then over on my female breeders, I kind of went overboard on my female breeders. I have one of these on every single heat panel all through my breeders. So for example, I'd say most people kind of get tricked into thinking that they don't need one of these, because if you buy a really high-end heat controller like the Herpstat 4s, I actually have two Herpstat 4s. I think I paid like $350, $400 for those. They're really expensive. They actually have all the alarms and bells and whistles in there. So if anything goes wrong, it'll actually alarm and let you know. But what you may not know is if I walk up to this rack right over here with my female breeders and I unplug that Herpstat 4, if I unplug the whole rack from the wall, I actually lose power to my heat controller, which basically means I have no alarms at all on that rack. And that's where these come in. These are actually battery powered, so you know, if you unplug the power, these will still keep running and they'll actually alarm. As a matter of fact, we've had some power outages, some long-term power outages. Some of them last almost 24 hours. And during a power outage, I can come down here in my reptile room and all my heat probes and all the alarms are just kind of screaming down here. And it's actually saved me a couple times where I had, you know, like a loose connection or something, you know, partially comes unplugged from the wall, and you're not looking at all your heat controllers every single day, but everything will start alarming. The other thing down here is all my plugs in the wall are full, so I kind of have to unplug one of my racks to plug in the vacuum cleaner to vacuum around. And even the vacuum cleaner, if I start vacuuming for a little bit too long and my hot spots start going down, all my racks start alarming, which is pretty awesome. So what I did today is I bought some upgraded little controllers here. So the ones I have on my rack right now are like half this size. They're really super cheap. I think I paid like $8 a piece. And these I actually paid like $16 a piece. Has a bigger display, has a really strong magnet, so you don't have to use any Velcro or anything like that. And what I'm going to do with these is I'm going to go around and show you additional places where you can use these as an additional insurance to guard against high or low temperature swings. So I'm going to go around the house and all over the place. Some of it's reptile related, some of it's not, and I want to show you where you can use these. Let me tell you, if you don't have some of these, you definitely, I'd say you need probably the bare minimum one of these per rack, like right in the middle, right where you put your temperature probe for your heat controller. I would definitely put it right there. So I'm going to go around and show you, I'm actually going to install these in several places around the house, and I want to show you exactly where I'm going to put these. Alright, so the first one I want to put on my reptile egg incubator, and it's kind of interesting on this one. If you look at how it's actually working, it flashes back and forth between the inside temperature and the outside temperature. So right now it is 70.9 in my basement here, and then it flashes over to 90.9 in my incubator. And for the alarms, I set a high of 93 and a low of 87, so it's plus or minus 3 degrees that I want to keep it dialed in. And take a look at this. I put the other 5 thermometers in there just to see how accurate they were from one to the other. So if you look at this one, this is 91.0 for an inside temperature. This one's 89.2. This one's 90.3, this one is 90.5, 89.4, so they're all pretty close as far as, you know, the plus or minus. And of course you have the probes in different places. And then it seems like it's kind of a delay as far as, you know, for the inside temperature, it should be exactly the same inside and outside, but I haven't had them in there that long. So you can see this one's at 88.3 on the inside, 89.2. So these thermometers still haven't warmed up enough to where you can see an accurate comparison between the inside and the outside. They all should be the same. They all should be set at 90 degrees. The other thing that's kind of interesting too is if you look down here, I have my heat controller. It's a VE300 set at 92. And I've actually had some people look at my heat controller and they say, hey, I want to set my hotspot or my incubator to 92 degrees. And the only reason I set it to 92 is because every single temperature probe that I've put in here ends up being about 90 degrees, setting it to 92. So there's a difference between where the heat probe is. The heat probe is right along the heat mats on the side. And then the inside temperature is pretty much 90, 91, depending on what you're actually looking at. So this is 90.5, 90.5, so they're coming up a little bit, just right around. This one actually says 91. So yeah, so if you actually look at all these, this says 89. Of course, this was the last one I put in there, so they're coming in 89 to 91. I actually had one temperature probe, and I mapped the whole thing. It was pretty much 90 degrees all the way around with that set at 92 degrees. So maybe I should turn that down to like 91, since some of these are coming in at almost 91. These are, seems like these are really accurate, 90.5, 91, so... My other ones I think were like plus or minus 1 degree. It wouldn't give a decimal. So that is pretty awesome. That'll be set up. Last year, or no, it was the year before, my incubator, one of the fans went out in my incubator and it got really cold on the bottom part of my incubator. And I wish I would have had an alarm back then because it got really super cold on the bottom of my incubator. I think it went down to like in the 60s because it was like in the middle of a blizzard up here in the mountains. It was really cold in my basement. All right, so that's the first one. I just wanted to compare the difference between all these. They look like they're plus or minus 1 or 2 degrees as far as the comparison between them. They're all really pretty close between all these. You definitely want to make sure they're all functioning properly. All right, so this one, what I did is it's magnetic on the outside, and then I just put a little packing tape and then put a little circle of extra wire up there and just hung the probe right in the middle to monitor the temperature. If anything goes wrong with my incubator now, it'll go off and it'll alarm, which is pretty awesome. All right, for my second temperature probe, I'm actually using it on my hot tub, which I've converted into a catfish pond. Take a look at this. I'm actually raising up some catfish in here for one of my YouTube channels. I'm doing daily videos every day on these 2 red-tailed catfish. I'm going to grow them up. They're like the size of a tadpole, and they grow super fast, and they get really big. They'll get like 6 feet long and 180 pounds. So it'll be interesting. They grow like an inch a week. They grow super fast. So if you're interested in checking out that YouTube channel, it's actually called Fins and Filters. You can go to YouTube, search for Fins and Filters, and I'm like #1. So if you're interested in that, and then definitely you want some kind of a probe on here. So what I have here, I actually have an 800 watt heater. This doesn't have an alarm, but it'll show you what it's set at. It's set at 78, and it's currently 77, currently heating. And the interesting thing is that's a 77, and if you look at my new one, it says it's 76.1, which is interesting. So take a look at this. I wanted to show you this too. This is my old version of a temperature probe. This is what I got before, these cheaper ones. This is 77.4. So there is a difference between, that's why you want to make sure exactly, you know, the difference between your probes. So this says 77, that says 76. That's like a full degree difference. So on this, what I did is I set the high to 80, the low to 74. And I've actually heard, as a matter of fact, if you actually look at the aquarium heater on this, I actually bought this separate. And I was looking at the reviews of the heater. Some people say that it's set at 78 and it'll just say that it's at like 77, but it'll cook your fish. There's some kind of a weird glitch with a lot of your aquarium heaters where you won't actually see the temperatures go up, but the heater will stay on and it'll cook your aquarium, or just randomly cut off and your fish will get really cold and die from either the heat or the cold. So you definitely want some kind of an alarm on any aquarium that you have. I actually have 2 more aquariums upstairs. On both of those, they have heat controllers that I look at every day. You can see the temperatures, but I don't have alarms on them, which I should definitely get some more for those. Alright, so take a look at this. I was actually going to put one over here on my upright freezer. I got this really nice, almost brand new upright freezer on Craigslist for 80 bucks. I got a steal in that freezer. It holds all my catfish food for my catfish pond. So what I actually did is I tried to test the alarm on one of these little temperature probes. And the problem is when you get below the temperature that it's set at, the alarm goes off for 10 beeps, only 10 beeps, and then there's nothing. And then all it does is flash the little number there, and that's not what I wanted. So take a look at this. It's already been 28 minutes and it still hasn't beeped again. So I was actually looking over on Amazon and it looked like some of these inexpensive temperature alarms, a lot of people were saying the same thing, that it would beep just a few times and then the light would, the little display would flash, but it wouldn't beep again, which is not what I want. if something goes on, I definitely want to hear continually beeping, at least beeping once every 10 minutes or something to let me know that the freezer's out or my catfish pond is overheating. I don't want to have to go to every single freezer and incubator and fish tank and look to see what the temperature is and if it's blinking. That is not really my intended effect. So unfortunately, this particular model, I'm going to return them to Amazon. You should buy one of these today, but just don't buy this particular model. So I'm going to go through and see if I can actually find one. I know those really cheap ones I bought, they're not available anymore, but they just keep beeping once they go above or below the set temperatures. So this is, it seems like a product glitch where it shouldn't actually do this. So there you have it. Make sure you test your equipment. Make sure if you buy multiples that they're consistent between them. Make sure the alarms actually work. That's the biggest. It almost seems like a flaw in the temperature sensor. I mean, what's the use of a temperature sensor if it doesn't keep beeping, right? So there you have it. That's that's kind of my conclusion on this particular model. So hope you learned something. If you decide to buy one of these, I would definitely research and buy one of these, but make sure you test it really good before you put your faith in it that it's actually going to save you if something goes out. Alright guys, that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.